lobby, and I went out and I picked up a copy of the book, and I flipped it over and I looked at it. For 2 years, I had driven Tom Friedman's daughter, Orly, to middle school. I'd stood on sidelines with Tom Friedman, and we had never talked about what either one of us did. And by then, I'd moved away. So it's fascinating. We lose contact with people, and I'm going to conclude in a minute talking about just how dangerous that is. I mentioned growing up in East Texas. Every Friday in New London Elementary School, we had fish sticks. And why did we have fish sticks? Because Catholics didn't eat meat on Fridays. Do you know what? There weren't any Catholics in New London. And I thought back about that, and I thought, well, why do we have fish sticks? I mean, New London was all Baptist and Methodist and maybe a few Church of Christ. And of course, there were no Jews. There were no Muslims. There were no Hispanics. There were blacks. And yes, in East Texas, they weren't called blacks back then. And we've gone through this period, but I am very hopeful, despite some of the things that are going on right now. We're in a little bit of an ugly period where now people are talking about immigrants and doing this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, county government has these 10 things we need to do. And we need to provide those services to everybody. I've had conversations with people about partisan politics. And you know, the truth of the matter is, flood control doesn't recognize race. Roads don't recognize religion. Healthcare doesn't recognize immigration status. Because if people are in our community, they all need these services. And that's one of the great things about being in county government. Let me conclude by telling a story that really bothered me. Y'all remember Danny Pearl? Danny Pearl was the reporter for the Wall Street Journal who was, gruesomely killed in Pakistan. When that story came out, I went, Danny Pearl? Well, I'm old-fashioned, and I still keep a little black book for phone numbers. I don't keep phone numbers in either one of these BlackBerries that I wear. Well, I keep some, but I don't ever use them. I use the black book. And I flipped it open, and sure enough, there was D. Pearl, parentheses, WSJ, a phone number, and it had been crossed out. And I immediately knew it was the same Danny Pearl. Well, I used to have lunch with him about once a week in Washington, D.C., because he was the transportation reporter for the Wall Street Journal. But he didn't know anything about transportation when he got that job. And I was a former interstate commerce commissioner and knew transportation, and somebody put us in touch. And I became sort of his vetting source. He'd have a story, and he'd bring it to me about truck deregulation or ocean shipping, and he'd say, does this make any sense? And we'd talk. And then he got transferred, and I lost touch. Well, where was Danny Pearl living when he died? Bombay. I'd been to Bombay 11 times. A lot of my business had been in Bombay. And because I had lost touch with Danny Pearl, I never knew that he was there. And any of you who have lived away from home, you're always thrilled to see a friend, even if it's not a really close friend, but somebody from your home come visit and share experiences. And I made a commitment after Danny Pearl's death that I wouldn't let that happen anymore. So if I could give one piece of advice about the mission, as broad as it is, of this institute, is identify those people. I don't mean your family, and I don't mean the close friends that you talk to every day. But identify those people who are from a different culture that you come in contact with on a regular basis, and don't lose track of them. Because if we all keep track of each other through the years, as we all move around the world, I think we'll be in a much better place, and this institute will be much closer to realizing its goal. So thank you very much.
Judge, to reach that goal, that you asked me to let you know whether we got accomplished. We have to work together with you, and we need your leadership and expertise. Isn't that right?
Thank you.
So let us receive a few questions, and right now it's time for question and answer session. Any question? No question?
I'll ask you a question. How are you enjoying your job as Harris County Commissioner?
Hey, you've all.
The question is, how are you enjoying your job as the Harris County Judge?
Actually, it's been, of all the things I've done, it's been one of the most interesting and challenging because, as you well know, I'd been to one county commissioner's court meeting in my life before becoming county judge. So the learning curve has been somewhat steep, but at the same time, and I say this with all sincerity, people there were ready for kind of a change and a new approach, and it's been very interesting, very challenging. Yes, sir.
My name is Felipe Reyes. I'm in community relations from Community College. You mentioned something about the University of Houston. Now I think you're thinking about the role of community college in the city.
Yeah, community colleges are critical. One of the worst things that was done back when I was in the legislature, there was a great effort made to reform public education. And as a result of that, a lot of things that were skills and trades were done away with in the public schools to a large measure, and that's unfortunate. I think the community colleges are going to have to step up and do more of that, in addition to being kind of the traditional role of being the stepping stone into the four-year institutions. So I think community colleges provide an opportunity that to people who wouldn't have an opportunity otherwise, and that's important because so many of the previous generation, of course, received their education through the GI Bill, and they don't have that this coming generation doesn't have that same access, so they're going to need to have something similar, and I think community colleges certainly are the first step along that path in many ways.
Please, Chief.
I didn't make a comment of support and a suggestion. I definitely support your stand on dealing with juveniles, the fact that they're not all criminals, they make mistakes as kids do, and they should be treated like that. But there is an issue that